Okay.
Okay. Okay. I'm ready and we have a quorum. So I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:04, and this is an emergency meeting of the Hartland School Board to figure out our next steps with respect to the budget. So that is the only mission of today. So with that, I will take public participation in a minute, with the caveat that the board is here to listen to the public, but we will not discuss or debate. And we will limit comments to 2 minutes if there are comments, and then we'll get into our discussion. The board discussion is supposed to be a discussion amongst the board members, and sometimes we will take comments if they're helpful to our discussion, but the board really needs to make some decisions today. So with that, I'll ask if there's any public participation. And all of that, and I'm not seeing any. So, okay.
Can you see that hand, Nikki?
Yes, I can. Okay. Dana Met?
Hi, Metis. Yeah, sorry, I can't get my camera to work for some reason, but
That's okay.
I just wanted to say thank you to all of you, because this has been such a heavy lift, and appreciating the democratic process, but being disappointed for all of you that the hard work that you're doing has not gotten us where we need to be yet through no fault of yours. And so I just want you to know that I think the increased voter turnout was great. My hope would be that people, who support what you're doing would have come out more, but regardless, just wanted to say thank you. I know lots of people are grateful for the work that you're doing, and I hope that you can feel that support.
Dana, thank you. That is really, really meaningful. And I have also received a couple words of thanks, which gives me the energy to keep going, because I'll admit that I don't have a lot of energy right now. So thank you so much for your kind words. And hopefully I should forward the thanks that I have to the board, because it does give you energy to keep going. Any other public participation? Nope. Okay. So we'll move on to the items for discussion, which is the budget again. And I did a little bit of research today. One of the things that keeps coming up is the Hartland budget keeps getting compared to the Wethersfield budget, and the Hartland budget is larger than the Wethersfield budget. And there are community members that say the schools are the same size. Why is the Hartland budget so much more? And so being a Hartland board member, I knew that our budget was responsible. I know that, but I didn't understand what Wethersfield's budget was. So I went and decided to compare today. And while the K-8 programs are the same size, we have 40 to 50 more students in high school than Wethersfield does. So that adds up really quickly. So if you look at the difference in, so it's over $1 million to in our tuition payments to cover those extra kids. And I say 40 to 50. We have 40 extra regular tuition payments, and I can never figure out how to deal with the tech payments. So we have, Christine could probably explain that better, but we're paying for 8 more tech students than Wethersfield, and we're paying for 40 more regular students. And so that's over $1 million in tuition payments, which would be expected. That's a lot of kids. And then that also increases our share of the SU budget by about $600,000. So that there is it's over 1.7 million difference just in the population difference between the two towns. And so I just wanted to correct those who think that Hartland and Wethersfield are identical and that Hartland's budget is way over because we're doing something dramatically different. I also went One of the other complaints that I've heard over and over again is that Hartland has 88 teachers and Weathersfield has 24. There is a big difference in the way that the school directories list staff, because Hartland does not have 88 teachers in the building, and I'm guessing that Weathersfield has more than the 24 that are listed, because there are some positions that I'm pretty sure are in the school that are not listed. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that research, because there are differences, and there are meaningful differences. So, and I suspect that the people that are highlighting the differences in the budgets are not on this call. So talking into a vacuum again. So with that, I guess I want to open the discussion. I'm really bummed that the budget didn't pass. It was a very small margin, and I think we need to figure out how we want to move forward. So, Christine, is Lindsay here?
Yes,
Okay.
she is.
Hi, Nikki.
I hate these calls. Oh, you know what? I can pin you guys. Oh no, that doesn't work. Oh wait, yeah. Okay, hold on. I'm pinning you guys so that I can actually feel like we're together. Sorry, this is going to take me a second, but it's going to be worth it for me because I need to see my board members. Okay. Yay. Okay, now we're all on my screen. Thank you. So I think maybe we'll open it to Lindsay and Christine to open the discussion, see what their thoughts are, and then we'll figure out what we want to do.
I can start. Lindsay, chime right in. Yes, we're all disappointed that the budget didn't pass. Lindsay and I have met and talked at length around, what we think might be a viable reduction in the budget. And we haven't come up with much, but we have come up with a teaching position, which is currently unfilled. It is, and it's a middle level additional ELA teacher that we had hired during COVID to, I think it was first hired to decrease class sizes during COVID. And we've kept that position on. This person, the person that's currently in the position is doing more teaching of the writing curriculum. And Lindsay, correct me if that's wrong. So it's divvied up reading, writing, and there's a lot of collaboration that goes on. But we have a staff member leaving, and that opens up a position that we potentially don't have to fill. Lindsay's pretty confident that she can work scheduling the middle level around the remaining core teachers. And so that would reduce the budget by $90,539.
Christine, you said it well. I don't have anything else to add.
But the middle school students would continue to get writing education
Correct. They would, Hannah. Yes.
and reading education
Correct. Yes.
in class sizes that meet education quality standards.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
There would just be less time for it, Hannah. I mean, currently they get 2 periods of ELA, and it would reduce that to 1. So it's integrated. Yes, they're still going to get reading and writing, but it would be less time on reading and writing in their daily schedule.
And what would that bring the total budget to?
$10,000,095, I think.
Yep, 10,095,028.
Does anyone have the ability to put in what that would do to the tax rate? Just out of curiosity, what that saves
It saves about 2 cents, I believe.
on the tax rate?
Wait, no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Hold on. Yeah, it would bring your tax rate down to 2.3039. It's currently 2.32. Yeah, close.
Which for $100,000 house would be basically saving
30.
to $380.
Um,
How much per $100,000?
It's more like $30.
$30 per 100,000.
Let me just play in the calculator and I can tell you.
I did the math on teachers at 100,000 and it was 35,
It was about $30.
31.
And this is why we miss Colleen.
Very much so.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, I'm late. My question is once something gets taken out of the budget, is there like, what is the probability that it would get like next year it would get put back into it?
Heather, I'm happy to take that one because I do think it's important to note a couple years from now, noting this meeting tonight probably because so right now we have 5 cohorts of grades 6 through 8, which is what we as the SU consider middle school. 2 years from now, we're going to have 6 cohorts of grades 6 through 8. So I think it's important to note now that there might be, we can't predict the future necessarily, but there might be another difficult conversation in the future where I come to the board and say, we have 6 cohorts of 6th through 8th graders when we previously had 5. And so this is, so I think it's an important conversation to have now, Heather, but also noting that it might have to be a conversation that we have in the future.
Meaning, when you say a difficult conversation, meaning like we are going to need an extra teacher, is what you're saying.
That might be it's hard to predict a couple of years from now, but that might be the conversation that's had in the future.
So to
And
me,
we did. Oh, sorry.
to
Oh,
me,
what-
it
yeah.
just
Just
doesn't.
hang on to that. We did a few years ago have a situation where no core teachers are allowed to have over 100 students. And we did have that a few years ago when we had 6 middle level cohorts. And not only were the teachers like literally pulling out their hair, because I think they had like 114 each, but the staff was at a breaking point and we weren't meeting education quality standards. 100 kids is a lot. I don't know what you have.
So is this worth it? Like, to me, all I'm thinking about is like, our students. And if we cut this now, we may never get it back. And then what then? Like, I'm going to be the optimistic one and say like, things are going to get better. They're really going to get better and the state's going to come through and everything's going to be fine. But I also want to be realistic and say that maybe it's not. And if we cut something now to save 3 cents, I feel like we're setting ourselves up for later, either not making EQS or just like not providing the best education we possibly can for our students.
Have you discussed this with the middle school team?
Beth, right now we're crafting a schedule that has the 4, when I say core academic teachers, math, social studies, science, and ELA. So we're right now working on a schedule that has 4. It is doable. We can make it work. But that's with the 5 classes of 6 through 8, which, but I wanted to make sure that I did know now, so it wouldn't come as a surprise in a couple years when we talk about the 6 cohorts of 6th through 8th graders. But right now we can make it work.
The one thing that I also wanted to note is this is the first year that we've had 2 ELA teachers. And so we're just going back to the way it was 2 years ago. It's not a huge change. And I think that part of this was to really try to dig our middle school students out of the COVID hole. And I don't know if we've succeeded in that, but that was why this position was put in.
Yeah, I mean, I think I appreciate having the context from you guys about sort of what's coming in the future, and I want to be thoughtful about that, because these decisions obviously have impacts. But I do think we're in a situation where, unfortunately, we are being presented with a fire that has to get put out right now. And I hate the idea. Certainly, this would not be the budget that any of us would pick, right, to meet sort of the most excellent educational offerings to students. And reading and writing is arguably the most important subject these kids are getting in middle school before they go to high school, where they're going to need to write their science labs and write their history papers and write their math proofs. So it's sort of a little bit concerning to think that we may be depriving Hartland kids of the best access to that education. I think, that being said, the other thing we're facing is while I think there are probably a cohort of people that are going to vote down any budget we propose, because they've said this isn't about the school, this isn't about the kids, this isn't about the school board, this is about the state. Those people are going to continue to vote no. There's nothing we can do to get those people to vote for a school budget in this inflationary climate with this degree of tax liability. But I do think there are probably some people who voted no, who, if they see some effort towards compromise, if they see some effort towards where we say, like, literally we had to cut an English teacher. Like, we're not talking about supplies or field trips, or like, we're not talking about, this description of fat that people think we have. Like, I hope there are people who, when they hear, in some hypothetical future, that the thing that was cut was an English teacher from our middle schoolers, they will understand just how lean this budget is and will vote yes, which ultimately, as a taxpayer in this town, I hope happens, because I don't want to be paying 7% interest on the $8 million we're going to have to borrow if we don't get a budget passed soon. So as much as I sort of hate the idea of it, I wonder if getting us to a budget that starts with 10 as opposed to one that starts with 11, that it might be something we are sort of forced to do this year.
I agree with what Hannah said. And I think it's also important that our voters understand that we already cut $500,000 from the budget. I mean, we will be the only school in the supervisory union that does not have a curriculum coordinator, which I think our teachers really want, and I think our teachers really need, with the 2 brand new curriculums. And we stand to be the only school without a curriculum coordinator, because that's one of the positions we cut. We also cut our Spanish teacher. And so, like, the cuts that we're making are real. The kids are going to notice. The teachers are going to notice. And I think our community needs to know that if we make this cut, we've now made $600,000 worth of cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And we made those cuts before we most of those cuts we made before we brought the budget to the voters. But I'm hoping also that the community understands that we don't have many more places to cut, and the cuts make almost no difference to the tax rate.
But the cuts do make a difference to the kids. Like, again, every time we cut to save 3 cents, like, we're affecting the kids in some way. And like, the state has put in a safety net for taxpayers of a certain level. They have not put in a safety net for our kids. There is no safety net for our school. At this point, we are like cutting things that affect our kids. And it's really hard to say, like, sure, let's get rid of an English teacher to save 3 cents to appease people to vote yes, where, like, sure, I want a budget to go through, but, like, again, future thinking, like, once we take this out, I don't know if it's ever coming back in.
I hear you, Heather, what you're saying, but I guess I'm feeling stymied at solutions. Like, I think putting forth the budget again the same way, we'd have to definitely dig into more data. Like, I think a number that people should know is, how much does it cost to run an election like that? Like, what does it cost at ours, because we're paying for it? And if we have to borrow funds from the state, what is that costing us? So none of this is free, this process. So I think it's really important that we try to get those numbers out to people. I hate the idea of cutting staff, but I also feel like we need to move something.
Christine?
Yeah, I can just share. I know that the cost of the ballots each time we run an election is $1,400, and the interest rate on the 87% of the current budget that we can borrow is 6.45.
And I think it would be worth actually getting numbers on that. Like, what's that 6.45 times whatever it is, and getting it out to people, because I think, if it's actually going to end up being more expensive, folks need to understand that.
Christine, can you have Ed, not tonight, can you have Ed make those so that we can put that in?
Yeah, yep, he can try. I mean, we talked about it today with the staff. I mean, it's all dependent on when the budget does pass, like how much interest you're going to be paying on that money, how much you're going to be borrowing. But I can ask him to come up with his best estimate. Sure.
I mean, you could even say, just like, if we had to do this for 6 months, this is what it would look like. Or if we had to do it for 3 months, just set a time period, I think. And I think just to give an idea would be really helpful.
Presumably it's compounded interest, so it also really depends how quickly we're able to pay it back. So,
that's true.
And
if
that number gets real big real fast.
Actually, yeah. So we probably want to run it till February, because we're not going to be able to collect taxes until February. At least, unless we can.
And aren't we allowed to borrow to pay our bills from somebody?
Yes, the tax anticipation note. Yep.
Yeah.
We are allowed, and we do regularly in the summer. We don't have enough income coming in typically.
But that's got interest too.
Yes, and we pay it off quickly typically.
Yeah.
So I will find out if it's compounding, and I will figure out, ask him to kind of figure it out what it would be until 6 months out or February.
I mean, I think another thing I just want to say that is a real cost of this whole process, for as much as, again, we were obviously happy to have people sort of increasingly participate in our informational meetings and obviously increasingly participate in the vote. Something that you just mentioned reminds me that just the teachers in our district are living through already an incredibly challenging environment for teaching. And now to add this sort of layer of uncertainty, I think is really unfair to them. I do worry about that in terms of reducing the middle school teaching cohort, given that I think we, all recognize that middle school is a really challenging time to teach, and we've had trouble retaining middle school teachers. So I think we just need to acknowledge that that's a potential risk of cutting one of the teachers, is that we just really increase burnout in that cohort, because it's going to invariably increase work for all of them. Working in a field where there's been a mass exodus recently, leaving a lot of pockets understaffed, I can speak to just how much that increases burnout for the people that are left there. So I do think that's a worry, but I we've been, it's a tough spot.
How does this all work because the teachers' contracts are all done and signed for next year, correct?
No, not yet. They have letters of intent.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, a huge concern of mine would be, like, the longer and longer we do this, we're just going to start losing staff, because, like you said, Hannah, it's not worth that uncertainty. That would be, we have such talented staff that would just be just a huge loss.
Andrea raised her hand, and then Stacy put a comment. Andrea, do you want to go really quickly?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure how to put in a comment, so I raised my hand. But basically, if you are putting something out to the taxpayers of objective, factual information, to administer a vote every time you have a vote, it's not just the printing of the paper ballots. But John, I saw him back when I was obtaining an absentee ballot, and he was saying that he had several extra days that he wasn't going to be able to perform town clerk work that was additional to administer this special vote. So I would definitely check in with him as well, because that adds into the cost for sure.
I agree. And Stacy put a comment in, which was one of the questions that I have too. And I think that honestly, we have no idea because we haven't been here before. But if we don't pass a budget by July 1st so that the tax bill goes out as it should in August, like, are we people going to see their whole lump sum of the education bill come February? Which, you know, would also be unpleasant. So people will get a portion of an education bill, which is the state will put $10,000, or they'll tax people at a rate of $10,000 per student. It's the $1 tax rate, which provides $10,000 per student. So that's like a small fraction of what it costs to educate a student. But the state will automatically have us collect that portion. And then the remainder of whatever we pass, I don't know when that shows up. I don't think we can collect taxes off schedule, but we all don't know. But I think
they're collected at that rate you're speaking of, Nikki. And then once we pass a budget, the state, I mean, we're going to get some of the ed fund money, a portion of it, to help run the budget until the budget's passed, but it won't be the full amount, but it does get adjusted after we pass the budget.
Yeah. So the question is when does that bill get sent? And I suspect it would have to be February.
Is there a way that we can educate like more of the public? Because to me, that's a lot of this is educating the public about what's happening. And yes, we've had informational meetings, but like 87 people total, I think, showed up to hear about this. There were over 1,000 people who voted. So that's like, 900 people who maybe didn't get all the information. And like, I feel like if people knew and we could get people to understand what's happening, we could maybe get people to like realize what a dire situation this is.
I agree, Heather. I had a community member email me asking why we haven't presented why our budget is what it is. And that was a real slap in the face because I can tell you that I have missed my family's games. I have missed music concerts. I have missed sporting. I have missed so many things to spend time educating our community, and then to have a community member say that there was no way that they knew why the budget was what it was and that I hadn't done my job was really, really, really insulting and hard to deal with.
I mean, I personally think that along that line, that the educational piece that I think is most important, like the other night I was up and I couldn't go to sleep thinking about it, is the fact that all of the budgets in the towns around us had passed. And I don't think people understand that like all of our tax money goes into one pool and the state pays out. So we're stripping from our students, an English teacher or whatever else comes out of the budget, why every other town around us is getting better resources, or at least, I don't know, that's just my take on it. And I don't know if many people know that we're taking away why all the other districts around us are getting that and more. But I also think that I think that if we just kind of educated more and put out the same exact budget as we did before, all the no voters are just going to dig their heels in even further. This is going to basically, I feel like, set the tone for kind of how votes go after this. I personally, like I said, don't want to take anything away from the budget because I think, like Heather said, it's going to hurt down the road. But I don't think that putting together the same budget and putting it forth would. I think we're going to get probably even more no's. People are going to be like, are you kidding me? You guys didn't do anything. You just, I don't know. That's just my take on it. I think this is, if we do have to make cuts, we sort of have to make them now and let everybody know that, we are serious about this. And although I personally think that we already put together a responsible budget before, that they know that we also are serious about, that we're validating whatever concerns that people are putting forth.
But I fear that, like they're going to be like, great. So they cut out one teacher. That's 3 cents. That's not enough. You need to cut more. And so now it gets big, because we know that to make a big change in the, in the percent of what taxes are, we have to cut big, and we can't literally afford to cut big. So like, again, I'm still stuck on this, like, why this whole having to cut, as opposed to like, how do we educate all the taxpayers to say, like, you're fighting the wrong fight. Like, this is not a fight with us. This is a fight with the state. And like, I'm more than happy to gather up people on the first day of in session and be like, let's fight the state together. Like, I'll be there. But like, the only people who are losing right now are going to be our Hartland kids. They're the only ones who are losing. The high school kids who live in Hartland, they're not going to be losing anything. They're still going to their high schools, and we're paying out whatever we need to do that. It's those kids at Hartland Elementary.
I do hear that, and I think it is frustrating because we feel like we proposed a very lean budget already, and this is just a reminder, right? That once again, there is nothing else to trim. We are now into the meat of educating these kids. But I think this is sort of one last chance to get a budget before we are borrowing a lot of money. I think we can decide to not let this be a slippery slope. So we're allowed to say, this is as lean as it will go. This is one chance to get a vote before July 1st. And after this, that's it. We can keep doing this every week, right? I mean, it's painful, but we are all very, very committed to these kids and to the incredible staff that we have in the building. And fortunately, this is not a staff member who's already connected to the Hartland community. So it's an unfilled position, which I think is a little bit helpful. And then that's sort of, it becomes the line in the sand, right? Is like, this is it. We don't cut anything else after this. We sort of give the town one last chance to get a budget before July 1st. And in terms of kind of getting information out, we sent out postcards, correct? With the QR code for people to look at. Okay. I saw a comment in the chat, but I just wanted to say that we did actually send those out, and we could do it again,
and then we had the sheet that we worked
the flyer. On. Yep.
Was
and I know Nikki called all the school, the parents before. So I think, I hear the call to sort of get more information out, but I will say we worked really hard to try to distribute information. We did try to avoid Facebook, but maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's the platform we need to go to.
I think you might be right on that one, Hannah. Dana.
Hi, it's funny that you just mentioned Facebook, because I was going to say, I think, based on the postcard suggestion too, is that the polls of this is the people who care enough to come to this meeting and the previous one and the one before that. And then the Facebook page, which I have looked at, of the folks behind the recall, and the swirl there around, making a statement to the state and all of that. And so those, where's everybody in the middle, and how do we get to them, I think is, the question. Because of course people said, we didn't know when this was. Well, you did send postcards, because I got one, so I knew. But I don't know what the answer is. I just think that is where that's where the difference makers are. That's where the folks that can really help us push through this hurdle, I guess. And like I said, I don't know what to do about it, but I think those are the folks that we need to just lay out the facts. Like, this is what it is going to cost you. This is not going to change your property tax rate in any significant way. That's a false argument. And, I don't know. I feel the frustration of knowing that communication is done, but somehow people aren't getting it. And so then what can we do differently?
Is there a way that, like, on voting day, we can have people who are on town hall with information, like just very clear information about like what yes means and what no means, and just quickly as people are coming in, be like, before you go and vote, like, just here's the real information. Because I mean, they're walking in to vote unless I don't know how this one works because of the time constraint, like if there's going to be like an absentee ballot situation. But like on voting day, barring whatever day it is, like I will go and stand and tell people like, what the story.
Heather, you're not allowed to.
You know what I mean? I don't, are you really not allowed to?
Yeah, you have to stand in the bullpen, so you can yell,
What's
but
the
you
bullpen?
can't. It's a place away from the voters.
Like,
So-
does the sidewalk count? I mean, like, can you
Yeah,
have?
no, they like
information?
rope it off.
I guess I would be surprised if there are undecided voters who show up to local school board budget votes. I assume that anyone who's taking the time to go do a vote for a single issue is pretty clear on what they're voting on that issue. I am following the chat, and I saw a comment about just sort of inviting the people who are most opposed to this budget to come talk to us about what they want to see. And honestly, several of us have, talked offline, only, never more than two of us at a time, about wanting that. Like, how do we find it? Like, what do people want? Like, I think I will be honest is that we've had now many, many, many meetings, both school board meetings and informational meetings that have been open to the public and open to hearing from people. And, as was seen tonight in the opportunity for public comment, nobody's said anything, right, to offer alternative solutions. And when we have heard from people, unfortunately, there are suggestions which would lead us to break state law regarding provision of special education services, or to cut programming like arts and physical education programming, which would result in us not meeting education quality standards. So unfortunately, the suggestions that we have heard would require us to propose a budget which would not fund a school that meets basic educational quality standards. And as much as I think there are many, we want to find compromise and we want to find a way to get a budget passed that acknowledges the incredible financial stress people are under, we are all very committed to proposing a budget which at the very least meets minimum requirements for educational quality. And none of the suggestions that we've heard thus far have in any way been feasible given those sort of state requirements and state law.
That's because there are no feasible, like at this point, there is nothing feasible to do. There's nothing feasible at this point to do.
Tracy.
Hey y'all, I'm Tracy Arlott Davis. I work with some of you. I see Heather at the rec, and my kiddos in Miss Stark's class. And Heather, the bullpen is actually not super far away. If you were there in November, you may have saw me do my shift for some of our electeds. But there are some rules that like John would have to impose about stepping out of that space. But there is plenty of space, and you are allowed to like hold signs and talk with people about the issues. I know that there's some rules about like blocking any sort of sidewalk, which I totally get the intent around. So let's talk the next time we see each other on the basketball court. And I am more than happy to see what I can do. And I know that my employer and my coworkers are committed to this as well, working for the Center on Rural Innovation. So let's get out there, girl. I got you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, so that I think I'm going to shift us towards timing because a lot of the things that we've talked about do have a time component. And I would like to put this to vote as soon as possible. And so Christine and Lindsay and I talked, and I don't have a calendar in front of me. There it is. Okay, so if we have to warn a week, we have 7 days. So now that we've had a failed budget, we can propose a new budget within 7 days. So
Nikki, sorry, within 7 days of this meeting or within 7 days of the failed budget?
within 7 days of our signatures. So if it could be within 7 days of tomorrow. And so we talked, Christine ran it by legal because this is also an unusual thing that none of us have done before. and the state law is not unclear, but also not really clear. So legal has said that we can, in fact, vote within 7 days. Looking at the calendar, we have options. We could try a Saturday vote, which would be the 8th. If we could all sign, what? Oh, wait. Yeah.
When we talked to John today, he could not do that date,
Okay.
the 8th, but he could do the 11th.
Okay. So the 11th would be back to a Tuesday.
I think keeping it on a Tuesday would be good for consistency. That is the last day of school, is that right?
What?
Oh, what is the last day of school?
It's not. The 13th is the last day for kids.
And we're trying to get the vote in before people go on summer vacations. So we are really feeling under the gun. Well, brain, I'm so exhausted.
Well, if it's warned tomorrow, which is the hope,
yeah,
we're well within the 7 days on the 11th, which is a Tuesday, which I think.
Do we need to have an informational meeting, or like, so there's no more of this like informational meeting then vote? Is there, if we do, like, let's pretend we do this on the 11th, how can we get some like information to be disseminated about repercussions or what this is going to look like and what we've done? Because like, again, unfortunately, like a lot of our things that we've been trying has not gotten the message out enough about how dire this is. So what, like,
and one of the frustrations I have is that there are community members who have kids in our school who have approached other community members and said, well, the note's just not true. What I'm reading on Facebook is that that's not true. And
what's
questioning who wrote the fact sheet that a whole bunch of us wrote. There are community members that have just said, oh, that's not true because I read something on Facebook.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But we're not going to combat that. We're not going to combat that either way. Like, I think some of it you just have to wash your hands of and just say, we'll do our best. You know, we can do another postcard. We can have an informational evening, you know, just come talk to the school board evening, like maybe not a set presentation. Be there for a couple hours and just have people show up if they have questions. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, more signs. I don't know.
Yeah. And we need to go collect all the signs that we have. That needs to be another action item. But one of the things, okay, here's the thought that went away and now is back. If we run with that timeline, and I really do think it's important to get this vote in before families leave for summer vacation, we don't have time to do a mailer. And we don't have time for John to mail ballots. So that's one of the bigger challenges too, is that anybody that received a ballot in the mail would not this time. They would have to pick it up.
But you can vote as soon as the ballots are here, and we can get them in time for the election. We checked with the printer today. You can vote at any time. It doesn't just have to be that day.
I mean, I know we're all sick of making these documents, but can we just put a document together that just has the budget total, right? What is the new budget? What we cut from the prior budget? If yes, tax rate. If no, the sequence of events, like the just information about the borrowed interest rate, the inability to, what it would mean in terms of collecting
and with price tags on everything. What does that election cost each time?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And then I see Heather's here advocating for cookies at a meeting, which on brand and really
We'll just put humor in there. Actually, that was Kurt's suggestion.
Yeah, if we have food, people will come.
I just don't have time to bake.
But what if we just make that document, and what if we email it? It's one document. We email it to the listserv. We print some for BGs and Mikes. We print it up as a big poster, and we hang it in the center of town. It doesn't even have to be. It can just be fact-based. It's not even. And then maybe put it on Facebook pages. I don't know. I know we all really, that makes us all get a rash to think about that, but maybe that's what we have to do.
I don't think Facebook is a bad thing. I mean, look at what it's doing for, for others. So I don't think Facebook is a bad thing. And I also think that maybe we need, like, next week in the evenings, we can get a little, Tracy, we can get a little like rally going with posters, and just like as people drive by through Four Corners or Three Corners or whatever it's called now, we can at least get people together. Like I'm going to make my kids work it and, see what we can do just to, all we need is one more vote, right? So.
Hannah, I might have an answer to your question. Christine and I this morning started a similar document to what you're describing, which I think could help, and we can definitely do that. And then additionally, I thought it'd be best to start as a slideshow where there's only 2 slides now, so I just need a little bit of time, maybe tonight and tomorrow, to get some more, where it's question and answer, very simple, singular question, answer below it for whatever the question is. And my thought was posting it on, you can post it on those platforms like 1 or 2 every day, but like a singular one at a time. So it's not 10 different slides. It's one singular image with a question and an answer. And then the next day or later, you could post a different singular question with an answer. And I'm happy to share it with the board once I just get a little more time to wrap my head around some other slides, if that makes sense.
I like that. Okay.
Can I make one more thing? Just like, we do have so many people that support this. Like, we have a lot of people that support this. And I hope that those people who do support are like going to their neighbors and going to their friend groups and really spreading the message. Because that's something that, like, I've been trying to do with, like, every time I'm somewhere, I'm like, make sure you vote for the school budget. Like, we've got to do this. So again, I feel like we need to get everybody who supports to at least talk to friends, neighbors, everybody, to just spread the word with the correct information about what this means.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll have to figure out our plan on that front. Which we may need a committee for because we can't have a board meeting just to figure out how to get out the vote. We do need to make decisions. So the 2 things that we need to decide is what is the budget that we're going to warn and what is the date that we're going to vote. So if people feel like we have reached that point, I would take a motion. If we need more discussion, we can do that too.
I'll make a motion to vote on June 11th, Tuesday, June 11th.
I'll second that one.
Okay, so that was Heather making the motion, Hannah seconding. Is there any further discussion? No. Okay, so I'll do a roll call since we're remote. So please say aye if you are in favor, nay if you are not. So we will make our next voting day on July 11th. Hannah.
June 11th.
June 11th. Hannah.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Beth.
You're muted.
I saw an aye. Heather.
Aye.
Okay, and I am also an aye. So we'll be voting on June, not July, June 11th, and that will be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
We have West, you've got a question, and there's another person that has a question. So
West, I would say West is asking if there's a way for students to get involved in passing the budget. That is not a board decision. That's an individual student with their individual parents' decision. And then, so then Andrea said that we lost a yes vote because of absentee ballots. I don't know what to do. I just, I feel like it's really important that we get this done while school is still in session. Isabel?
Yeah, hi, this is actually Ben Sirwise about that. I'm using her phone. She's more tech savvy than I am. What was the new proposed budget now? I must have
We
missed
haven't
it.
done that yet.
Okay. And has anyone looked at like the overall, I don't know, supply budget? Because I've looked at the budgets and I think there's room for cuts in like supplies as well. I mean, I hate to be the one who compares to Weathersfield, but I can go down a list real quick and you can see the differences and they're actually kind of quite large.
Yeah, were you here at the beginning of the meeting when I highlighted some of the differences?
I was, or I might have missed it.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm talking like just the offices of the principal. You know, supplies is $10,000 for Hartland. It's $3,000 at Weathersfield. Travel is $2,500 for Hartland. It's $700 at Weathersfield. Communications, 15,000 Hartland, 13,000 for Weathersfield. There's this other professional services local, $40,000 for Hartland. Weathersfield doesn't have any. Tuition reimbursement, 5,000 Hartland, 2,500 Weathersfield. And these are just a couple I looked at. Library services, Hartland, 15,000, Weathersfield, 200. I mean, that's a lot of money right there if it's apples to apples. I don't know. And also, lastly, no one has talked about proficiency test scores. What is the difference in proficiency test scores? I've looked at them, and Hartland is absolutely horrible. 79% unproficient in third grade math compared to other schools around us with more teachers. I mean, no one has mentioned that at all. So I'd like to someone address proficiency scores at some point
Okay.
and how all the cutting positions will play and how many positions we've had in the last 10 years and how much, how has that helped the students and how has it hurt the students? So that's
Well,
all I have. Thank you.
each individual class is different, and it depends on the makeup of the class. Our class sizes are not large enough to really compare one school to the other when it comes to proficiency scores that are averaged across the class. I don't think that the two budgets are apples to apples. And I can let Lindsay or Christine highlight some of the differences. I do know Weathersfield historically has not met many of the education quality standards. And they have run a budget that is so lean. I don't think they've ever had a health teacher. They've not had a world language teacher in many years. And Hartland is trying not to get to that point. We believe that our students are better served when we're meeting the education quality standards. Christine or Lindsay, I don't know if you have anything else to say on that.
I don't think so. I don't have the budgets in front of me. If there are specific questions, I can try to address them. But yeah, there are different schools and there are different needs, certainly different student needs between the two buildings as well.
Yeah, and I highlighted earlier in the meeting that one of the largest differences between the two schools is that Hartland has 40 to 50 more high school students than Weathersfield does. And that equates to about $1.7 million. So when looking at the budgets, there's absolutely no way that Hartland can get close to Weathersfield when we've got 50 more students. So that's a really large difference between the schools. When you take away that difference, the difference between the schools is actually not very much. So
I also just would say, just as a board member, from a practical standpoint, if we were to, not that we have any interest in doing this, because we are very fortunate to have a huge amount of trust in our educational administrators in the building, but if we were to go through the supplies with a fine-tooth comb and attempt to only buy precisely what they're buying in Weathersfield, I suspect we would, if we even did that math, we would save about $25,000 from the budget, just sort of loosely doing that in my head. I'm a Hartland graduate, so I don't know if my math proficiency score is high, but I think that unfortunately does not translate to a significant amount of money. I mean, I think what we all understand is that in order to have any kind of impact on the property tax rate, which is really what people are interested in, right? Nobody actually wants teachers out of the building. People want their property tax rates lower. We are trying to do that for people, but the only way to have any real impact on the property tax value would be A, to have a different CLA, B, to not have been exposed to the sort of statewide changes in funding, and C, to cut many, many staff members, because that is where the money comes from. It doesn't come from buying paper, unfortunately. That is not going to get us any real meaningful savings in the property taxes. And again, if we sort of decide as a town to vote down the budget because of concerns about how many library books we're buying, we really run the risk of spending exorbitantly more money on interest payments on the money that we have to borrow. And so I hear that we could go, line by line, but I think we have to think about where there's going to be an actual impact, and that's not going to be it.
Hannah, I totally agree. I mean, and I think going through that, it's like death from a thousand cuts. It's not getting the bang for your buck that you want. Even cutting, I mean, if we're cutting staff, like it's just not getting to what you want the tax rate to be. So instead, if we just keep cutting, we're sacrificing the education of our students. And that's all we're accomplishing. We are accomplishing absolutely nothing when it says we are going to, be affecting the tax rate to any significant amount. And that's just not what I'm not willing to make cuts that are going to affect generations here.
I agree with that statement. And I also understand the frustration of our fellow board members in other districts and how they feel that they are not meeting the needs of their students. And I don't want to get to the place where we feel like as a board, we're struggling to meet the needs of our students. That's just not where I want to go. And I also, cutting supplies is not going to make a difference on the tax rate.
And I'll say it's already affecting our students. I mean,
no, it's not respecting our students. It's just
it's affecting our students already.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's already, our students are concerned. Both my kids asked me if we needed to move. I mean, it is affecting our students and our staff daily. And people are going to start leaving Hartland.
Yep.
And, I just would say that too, that we did cut a lot of supplies. We cut outdoor equipment supplies. We cut locker supplies. We cut supplies for the music department. So we have actually cut nearly $300,000 of supplies.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we need to make a motion to, I guess I would encourage us to make a motion to approve a budget number. And Christine, I'm lost on my screen.
It's with the additional cut of a teaching position, it's 10,950,028.
You say that again?
Yep, 10 million. 950 and 28.
Okay, so 028. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And that gets us well below. I mean, I think that one of the biggest messages that we need to get out to our community is that now we've got a less than 10% increase in our budget that's causing a nearly 30% increase in our taxes. And I think that we cannot continue to cut and to offset. I think I ran the numbers. We'd have to cut 1.5 million, which would be 50% of our teaching staff in order to offset.
You would have to close the school.
We'd have to close the school in order to offset the tax increase. And we can't.
And we still would have a tax increase.
Yeah. And we would still have to tuition the kids somewhere, which would not be.
If we tuition the kids somewhere, it is going to be far more expensive than it is to keep Hartland Elementary School running because everybody sets their own price.
Yes. And actually, that brings me to another point that was raised to me between the last informational session and today. And that is that there was a lot of questions about why don't we restrict where high school kids can go. And the fact of the matter is that the schools that we send our kids to don't have a lot of extra capacity right now. And so Hartland can't say we're going to send all of our kids to this school or all of our kids to this school, because those schools actually can't take us. And so I think that that's just a really important thing to note, is that we have school choice and we send our kids in broad directions. And that by doing that, those schools have the space to take our kids. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to stuff our kids into a limited number of buildings.
And also, that's not really, I mean, that's not what we need to decide right now, right? The vote.
No, not at all.
So
I just wanted to bring that up because it came up,
right.
and I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah. But I think it speaks to the fact that this is that this issue, unfortunately, because it is the one place that feels like it's inside people's locus of control, is the thing that people are saying yes or no about, but it's pulling in a lot of other sources of challenges that people feel, but it's not, but what we need to do is just decide on a budget. Yeah. So just to say that, that's not the question at hand right now.
So I will take a motion to approve a budget of $10,950,028. Okay, Ryan's going to move that. Is there a second?
I'll second reluctantly.
And reluctantly because
I hate this. I hate this. That this is not a point I want to do. I don't want to be cutting anything. We were already at a place that was a responsible budget, and we're only doing this to try to switch a few votes. And and I agree we need to do it, but I am not happy about it.
Yep. Okay. Is there any further discussion? So at this point, we'll have cut $600,000 from our original budget. We will have cut multiple positions, and we will have cut a playground that we desperately need. And I'm not real sure where we go next. I'm hoping that everybody that's on this call will help us get out the vote, and we'll get a bigger turnout. The other thing that I did hear on the vote is that there were a lot of community members that were confused because they had voted once and thought that that was it. So we need to make sure that we get the word out that you have to vote again. Okay, so with no further discussion on the budget number, I'll do a roll call vote. So starting with Hannah.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Beth.
Aye.
Heather.
Nay.
And Nikki, I'm an aye as well. Colleen with no voting. Colleen, our former board member, just wanted to get her voice out that she's upset with this decision. So the votes were 4-1 with no abstentions. Okay, so Christine, you're going to...
I'm going to text Lori right now. She's going to get the warning started. She's going to send it to all of you in DocuSign. So she's asked that you please check your emails.
Okay.
And she'll get it posted tomorrow morning. In the
Okay, and so how long does it take to go through the printer?
John said today that if they had the warning by tomorrow afternoon, they could get the ballots to us by next week at some point. Well, I think late next week. Lindsay, does that sound right? I'm looking it up now.
Yes, that does sound right.
Yes, they can meet the timeline for the vote on the 11th if we get them the new wording of the article tomorrow. She thinks we'll have the ballots by the 5th.
Okay. And that doesn't give us enough time for any absentee ballots, but...
It does not, but people would be able to vote on the 5th if the ballots are in. Stop by and vote at any time.
Yep. Okay. Okay.
Nikki, I have a question. Can we, so what is the procedure for a committee?
Oh, yeah. So
what does that look like?
So we can't have a board discussion with any more than 2 of us.
Yep.
And so we would have to have a committee of 2 that would get ideas together and try to implement some ideas.
I would like to be on that committee, please.
Okay, Heather is on that committee. Does anybody want to join Heather on the committee?
Come on, Hannah. I know you want to. Say yes, Hannah.
I'm a crying baby, but yes, I will be on the committee.
Okay, good. I knew you were going to say yes.
Okay, and I also have some ideas.
Feel free to assign me duties.
What?
Feel free to assign me duties.
Oh, we will assign you.
Hey,
What?
Stacy, are you allowed to have non-school board members on our committee? Yes, we most definitely are.
Yes, we will
Yes.
get to participate.
Look at that. So Stacy, Tracy, and Colleen would like to join
Okay.
us.
Stacy, Tracy, and Colleen, can I get your email? Well, I know Colleen yours, but can I get your email addresses or something? Or I don't know how to do
I have
that.
Stacy's, so she doesn't have to put it in the chat.
And Tracy can do it, and Colleen, I can get yours. Okay.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay, we will
Okay.
do that. Andrea has a question, I think.
Oh, Andrea.
Yes, sorry, I was trying to unmute. Comment, I guess. I wonder if there's a way to get a list from John, whether that's confidential or not, of people who did receive absentee ballots. Because I say this because I have 2 very elderly parents, and there are some in our community that are shut in or not able to get down there to vote in any way, shape, or form. And so is there a way for some community members to be able to take a ballot in person to the homes of some of these people? Because this is an important vote for everyone, and people shouldn't be excluded just because they aren't physically able to get down to the town office, even though it's handicapped accessible. That's not all there is to it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. I guess,
I'll email John tonight. I have to email him anyway.
yeah,
And-
that
and
would be
ask
great
him.
if you could email them.
Yep, I can do that.
I mean, I
Stacy
don't
just
know.
mentioned in the chat that Aging in Heartland may have a resource on that.
Okay.
Nikki, I know a point that John, when Christine and I spoke with John this morning, that he wanted to make sure that we make was people came to him and that were not sure or didn't have the awareness that they could actually go to Damon Hall prior to the vote and vote right there on the spot and then turn your ballot in. So he wanted to make sure that that point was well known because he had gotten that feedback that people were unaware of that.
Okay. So that, I don't know if I'm putting that on my new committee to get that information out.
We can. Lindsay, so for Facebook, or is this, maybe Lindsay, this is a conversation we need to have later. We'll talk later.
Yeah. Okay. I think
I'll work on collecting whatever signs I put out. Do you want me just to patch in a new date?
yeah. So who put out?
Beth and I put them out.
Okay.
So and we have most of ours back.
I have been
Okay.
negligent.
I put one
I'll do a
out.
circle this weekend.
Peter Tenenbaum has a comment.
Yeah, I saw that. Go ahead,
Okay.
Peter.
It's Sheila.
Oh, hey, Sheila.
Hey, how you doing? I've been working the polls, and there is a whole system to get votes out. And that was one of my idea, is because people aren't using that system as much. And I don't know exactly how they call, but 2 justices of the peace have to go out together. And then we give them some kind of oath, bring their ballot to the House, and then they can vote. And when I did the last polling, not this one, but the last one, Pat and Barbara went out way somewhere because John got a call and it was the day of the voting and just said, can you send up 2 people to get us our ballots? So Maybe people just have to know that. And maybe, Pat and I or something can just do a round and see what we can get. But that is a system.
Thanks, Sheila. And I think maybe if we send that out to the Aging in Heartland group, that would be a good starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to do this official thing. So
Okay.
you just want to beware because you can't at 6 o'clock start running around.
Right. Yeah. So we should get that out now.
And then we may need more pollsters if people are going to have to go out and do that.
I know some people involved in Aging in Heartland. I can reach out to them.
Okay. Okay, I'm hanging up, I think.
Thanks, Sheila.
Mhm.
Sheila, can I ask a question before you hang up?
Yeah.
Is that only on the day of the election, or can those two justices go out prior to the election?
I'm not certain, but I think you can, because it would be treated like,
Absentee.
absentee
Okay.
ballot. So that's the more organized, if you can get that going, that's probably a good thing, because we are losing some poll people to
Go out
illness. What?
Yeah. They can go out ahead of time.
That's good.
Okay. Then it's a matter of getting the crest and knowing who needs it.
Okay. Thanks,
Okay.
Sheila. Thanks, Andrea.
Oops, sorry.
You're good.
I don't know. Okay. Thanks. You know how good I am at this, Nikki.
Yep.
Can you turn us off? Turn out this one.
Okay. I think, is there anything else? No. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kurt. I think that we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, but
Okay.
but just before that, we are meeting for our board retreat, right, on the 4th.
Yeah, unless we change it to something else, but yes.
Okay.
So,
Motion to adjourn.
okay. Motion to adjourn by Heather.
Seconded.
Seconded by, who was that? Hannah or Beth? I looked down. Hannah. Okay. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay. So I think that is it.
Nikki, there was a request for us to stay on.
Yeah,
for a
I see that.
question.
Okay.
Okay. We'll stop recording before that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you to everybody who came. And thank you to people who contributed really good information to our discussion. And we'll work on getting the vote out.